Good morning. My name is Chintan and I'm delighted to be here. Jaipur Bookmark is probably the most special part of the Jaipur Literature Festival for me because it gives a space for people who work very hard behind the scenes to come and shine. Often, authors are the ones in the spotlight and editors, publishers, agents, whereas other people who make these books happen don't really get a chance to talk about their work. So I'm glad that I get to be part of this. Thank you to all the wonderful authors from France who've traveled here, who've been attending literature festival after literature festival, panel after panel, and sharing their expertise. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to the audience for being here, for waking up early, probably even missing your coffee and breakfast to make sure that you hear from these professionals who are about to fly out tomorrow. So while they are here, let's make the best use of their time. Before we venture into talking about sustainability, publishing women's narratives and LGBTQIA narratives and other things that we wanted to talk about, why don't we capture that moment when you fell in love with books and how that happened? What is it that really made you want to venture into publishing as a career? Shall we start with you, Gaëlle?
Yeah, thank you. I think when I was a child, my first dream was to write the dictionary. Just, that's enough. And I was absolutely fascinated about all what you can find in a book and what it can give you about imaginary, about knowledge. And I think, to me, a book is something that you can open, and inside you will find whatever you could search, but all what you don't just know about it. So I think it's my first love with books.
Thank you so much. Yes,
hello everybody, thank you for the Jaipur Bookmark and the French Institute to invite us to discuss with you all. It's a real inspiring moment. So when I was young, my house was full of books. I think it was like a familiar object in my place. But I remember that my mother used to bring me to the public library every weekend. So for me it was like a Christmas moment where I could explore the shelves, read a lot, and find books to bring back home. So it was my first contact with reading and books. And after, in the high school, I fell in love with Marguerite Duras. And I was thinking that I will do literary studies. After, I didn't know if really at all about publishing industry. I just wanted to study books, text. And so I jumped to an art school and I realized I really wanted to be in the heart of creation and bringing to world like new voices. And I discovered edition industry and I said, okay, it's my job and I will do that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I think in my case too, it came from childhood because my parents were readers and we had in our house a big bookshelf in a room. And actually, before I could read them, I used the book to build doll houses. So each book was a stone of this house. And so I spent hours putting books together. And when I could finally read them, because I knew how to read, I start by the beginning. I have read everything I could in this room. So that was starting that way. And then I remember I pretend I was sick so I could stay alone at home, and I spent the day with Agatha Christie novel, eating chocolate and reading Agatha Christie. And I'm pretty sure my mother was a doctor, so she knew I was not sick, but I think she encouraged my love for books that way. So that was the beginning of everything.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think, often when we talk about contracts, rights, marketing and publicity, sometimes that love of books that made us want to get into this in the first place, there isn't enough space for us to talk about that. So I wanted to know, how do you retain your love of books when you're also trying to do business and cater to the market?
I think it's very central, and I think it's very important that it stay central. We are not just working about the book industry and something very cold and just an industry. It's a very special industry, because I think that all what we do and that all what I do is about trying to find to help bibliodiversity, trying to help the people to have the more books in their hands, and the book, the precise book that they need, and maybe the one that they will need at the right moment. So I think the content of a book should have to be and have to stay in the center.
I think you ask a really good question, because when we work in publishing industry, the first part is reading, and sometimes I realize that as we have to read a lot, I don't want to lose the pleasure of reading, and I want to keep my childhood eyes, not to think about how efficient I will talk about this book, how this subject could be a brand in France or everywhere. So now when I read a book, it's a mix between real pleasure and also my second brain in thinking, oh, this could be really interesting for the market, for the foreign, or for the audiovisual right. So now I try to keep those two brains together and still but I still have a lot of pleasure when I read a book.
Yeah, and I think, well, we are talking about marketing, sales, and everything, but to be honest, if we really want to be rich, we have to change jobs, and it's the same. It's for everybody the same. And when we are here in India, and we met those past days some publisher, and we were talking about the book we are holding rights, and the book they were holding rights to. But there was always a moment where we start talking about a writer published in France by somebody else and published in India by somebody else, and we were just like blah 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 blah. Oh wait, yeah, so great. So this patient is still there for all of us, and I really believe there is a lot of creativity in the independent publishing, in the independent bookstore activities, and all those independents. Well, they have to fight, they have to work too much, they have to have low money for all the work they do, but whatever, they are doing that. And as long as I can go on working with them, well, the passion will be there, I'm sure.
Thank you, Marianne. Since you bring up independent publishing, would you mind talking about what independent publishing really means to you, both in terms of financial independence and political independence?
Yes, I have been working a lot for independent publishers. Actually, the last publisher I'm working with, Édition d'Alva, used to be in an independent publisher, but had to sell itself to a big company because of the pandemic and the fact that the cost of the paper was too high, so we could afford it. And so at a certain point, we had to make a choice, going on publishing foreign literature or not being independent anymore. And we didn't want to quit translation. It was too important for us to make the link with other countries in our publishing house. So we start working with another a big editorial group named Editis. So our choices are independent choices for the moment. they don't give us so much money. At the beginning, we had this impression that, okay, we could breathe a little bit, the money will come. Actually, it's not coming. they look after each expenses and sometimes it's really stupid. It's just like a few euros, but they don't want to give us that to do a partnership with the reader groups, for example, and just to buy some wine. Okay. So it's really stupid. But so far, we can choose every book we want. But they are starting... Well, Dalva is a publisher which only published female writers. That's our goal, the line. And there is a guy who is supposed to be our director, which is trying... Sometimes he asks the question, but why aren't you published male writer? I mean, it's stupid, it's sexist. And we were like, come on, it's 10 books a year by women. We are not going to do something wrong about men. So please, let us do that. There is a lot of women to publish. So the answer we give to him is, okay, we will publish male writer when all the female writer will be published already. So.
And this is a choice that even translators are making. You know, when Daisy Rockwell was, I don't know if she mentioned this time, but when she's been here before, she's spoken about how she's making a conscious decision to translate only women, because she wants to expand the body of women's writing. Speaking of independent publishing the way you did, it almost seems like publishing can be a form of activism, because often the people who are at the forefront of leading these indie publishing initiatives are themselves marginalized in some way or the other. When I look at the experience of India, for example, Zuban, Women Unlimited, Yoda Press, all are led by women. They may not be socio-economically marginalized, but in terms of gender, yes. And the kind of books they commission, the kind of books they develop, the kind of new readerships they are trying to develop, often mainstream publishers are not looking at doing. How does this work in the French context? Would you mind talking a little about that?
It's exactly the same. But I think at a certain point, all the publishers have to be political a little bit. Even if you do mass market, it's also a political choice to find a large audience, to put book in every hands. And well, so I am passionate about books. I am passionate about writers, but I feel even more passionate about publishers. I don't present myself as a publisher. I help publishers to promote their books. That's my job. And if I'm so passionate about publishers themselves, it's because, you know, to spend your whole life trying to find the right book and trying to promote them and trying to find the largest audience you can for those books, it's kind of a fight you have, and every book says something about your vision of the world. And so, yes, and those publishers you quote, those Indian publishers, I met them, those passages. They are all wonderful, and they have this vision of the world and this view of what has to be done, what you have to put in the hands of readers. And that books are soft power, but really deep power. So I really trust all those publishers. Well, it's said like that, it seems stupid, but we can change the world.
It's not stupid at all. Thank you. Violaine, how are you looking to change your corner of the world through the work that you do?
Wow, it's a good question. Whoa. No, but I completely agree with what Marianne say, of course. And for my part, as we have an agency, it's really important for us to be able to work with French authors, new voices, but also more famous author, but we also work with French publishers. And in this idea to be a bit engaged, we decided to work with an independent French publisher who has no money enough to get some department of rights or to get some marketing department as well. So we bring our skills. We are only 4 people, but we bring our skill to help them on the long journey of releasing a book. And for us, it's already a first engagement, and we are also consultant for some publishers who doesn't know exactly how it works. And honestly, this travel in India gave me the conviction I was doing a great and inspiring job, because when we met with the publisher you just talked about before, the Indian one, you know, we always say book can change the world, but when we see it's really they are dedicated their life to publish those type of book. I mean, when I went back to France, I went to say we have all to do that in this with this energy and with this engagement. So it's really inspiring, and I hope that maybe more Indian book will come back in France also, because my job is to put French book abroad, but when I come here, I want some Indian book in France at the same time.
And well, the French embassy, the French Institute in India has brought out The Little Prince in a new form, right? I mean, I'm looking forward to reading that. I read about it.
Yeah, and I have to say the French Institute is really active for making bridges between India and France.
Congratulations, you are great, really.
The other thing I wanted to get you to talk about is also the importance of participating in networks and collectives as people who want to change the world, because you can't do it alone. You can't rely on your own inner resources. I'll ask you to reflect specifically with reference to one issue. In the US, we have seen a lot of authors, translators, and publishers come together, especially to critique bodies like PEN, for example, on their stand against the genocide in Palestine. What has been the situation in your country? Have publishers, authors, illustrators gotten together to say that as people who are participating in knowledge production, how do we interact with the state of Israel, for example? Has there been any conversation around this?
You mean if some writers get together to be to protest? Yes, I can say that, because when we were talking about Palestine, for example, one of Éditions de l'Olivier author called Fatima Das, who is already activist in lesbian community, when she received a big prize in Cannes because her book has been released, is now a film movie, you know, you have to go on the red carpet, and she was bringing like the Palestinian on her heart, and they, of course, they give voices to people who can't talk. I was thinking again about Fatima Das, because in France you have also prizes for queer, gender, and so it's a way to make a special focus on it. And each time it happens, it's the occasion to make a debate, to discuss, and to make a beautiful exchange for that.
Since you mentioned queer writing, we find in India that a lot of writing that goes under the label of queer or LGBTQIA+ tends to be dominated by gay men's writing. And there aren't that many books by trans people or by lesbian women. What is the situation in your country? Also, if you could talk about the racial diversity, because you know, that's another thing that France has been struggling with for many years now.
There is a lot of publishing houses who have specific collection. For example, Tram is working with a publishing house called Cambourakis, And Cambourakis has a line from a long time ago called sorcière, which means witches, and they only published feminist book, LGBTQIA+ book, and they are really focused on this line particularly. Dalva is only making woman fiction and essay. I mean, there is a lot of different publishing houses who do that, but I want to mention as well that I work with a Canadian publisher, and I realized that especially for childhood book, the Canadians are really more I mean, we are late because for them there is no difference between it's not anymore a minority book that you have to focus on. It's only you have lesbian, you have queer. There is no question. So when we open a child book from Canada, you discover that it's a love story, but the love story it's between women. You have a story of someone who is having adventure, and you discover it's a queer person, but there is no like etiquette or focus on. It's just normal.
Yeah, I think in France we have to do more about it. Now we have some publisher dedicated to this kind of books, but it's only really small publishing houses, and so with not a good distribution, for example, and we don't have initiative as powerful as in US, in UK, or in Canada. So we are starting doing that. It's not powerful enough, to my sense.
Gaëlle, we haven't heard your voice in a while. So before we talk about sustainability, I wanted you to build on what they've been sharing. Do you think the problem with lack of diversity in publishing has to also do with the fact that people who are in decision-making positions with respect to commissioning new books or editing new books are not from the communities that we want to see in the books themselves? So the people who are leading the discussion are actually from majority communities. Is that part of the problem?
I think that can be the problem, but I think what is interesting is for changing the world, is to work collectively, to do networks and to work together. That is my job. That is what I do in my day-by-day life with the non-profit organization that I run. The name is Fontaine aux Livres. We run a network of independent publishers, booksellers, translators, graphists, designers, etc. We put everyone together. Most of them are independent, they are very small, and to be small is very difficult. So as we said, you don't have money, you don't have visibility, you don't have a place to make growing your project. So by doing that together, you can be stronger. So that's not a question of power up to down, that's a question of power down together, and I think that's very, very strong.
Thank you so much. Now, sustainability. Often when sustainability in publishing is talked about, it's limited to the subject or the topic of a book. Because right now there is a lot of interest in climate fiction, as well as, and with the AQI rising in Delhi, where most of the publishers are based, I think these feel more of an urgency to publish books related to environment, which is a good thing. But what about sustainability in the book production process itself? And that's something you have been addressing through your work. So could you talk us through that? Maybe people from the industry who are sitting here could benefit from your experience.
Yes, of course. I've been a journalist for a long time, and I was working about many subjects, but also about environment and development. And when I run this non-profit organization, where I make training, I tried to make a session about environment, and I was surprised how the publishers were very far away from these questions. They just felt it's not important for them because we are just making books, and books is only paper, and paper is not a problem. It is false. We are part of the problem, and I think that's very important that we can be aware with that. So we make training on these questions, but at one point we decided to go further, and we created a game The game name is the book Fresque. It is inspired by the Climate Fresque, which is a program which has been launched in 2018, when it is said that there are very big problems with environment. And people said, if we want the people to be aware with that, we have to find solutions that are easy to take for the people. So they created a card game that you play together. It's very easy, it's very fun, and you will consider the problematics about sustainability. It's very general, but we did it for the book industry. And that's very interesting because you will follow, by playing this game, how do you do a book from the beginning, the publisher, the author, to the end, the reader. It seems to be easy at the beginning, but the more you play, the more complicated it will be. And on each card, you will find the data about environment. And that's what is very interesting, is that you will have all the data about environment in the book industry. And making it together, it connects each job, each profession, and everyone will find this, know about the problem and have to find the solution. And it's very efficient. We do that since 2 years. In many places, in big publishing company, with author, publishers, printers, etc., for the French Ministry of Culture, for many, many places. And each time, it's very surprising how it can help people to have the idea to make solutions. It's a very good project.
She even did it in New Delhi.
Yeah, I did it for the first time in New Delhi. It was a very nice moment. Everyone was standing up and trying to find solution and to struggle with what were in the card, and they wanted to go and do it again, and they quit the room with many energy.
One of the new developments in publishing is the use of AI, and we know from enough writing that's available about the kind of burden that puts on the environment, because much water is needed to power the servers that AI use, but increasingly, I mean, I find publishers that don't want to use human illustrators because they'd rather use AI for illustrations that's going to cut down at their costs, or they want to hire fewer editors because AI can do the work for them, which is actually good for indie publishers because they can't afford to hire that many people. But when you look at environmental concerns, how does that match up?
I think we are facing a very big problem, but we don't know how it will work. What I want to say with AI now is not about environment, is that I think in that moment, in that precise moment that we are living now, with all this information going to us with AI, we will really need publishers. It's not the end of the job of publisher, it's the beginning of the world of the job of publisher. With AI, with so many information coming to us, we will need some people to take this information to make something that can be done to the people in a right way, that can be secure about information, that the information is good and it has been thought. And I think AI will be a problem, but it's a responsibility for publishers. So we are now at a very, very important moment for that.
What are some of the creative ways in which publishers are addressing the problem of pulping? Because in India, one finds that there is a tendency to declare a book a bestseller even, as soon as it's even gone on pre-order, which does that affect the kind of print runs that are done? And, a book the buzz may seem like the book is doing really well, but if you talk to somebody who's actually working on the marketing, you know that the person has bought the copies in bulk, Like, how do you deal with this kind of situation in your country?
Yeah, pulping is a very big problem. It's 1 book on 5 is pulped. But that is a problem because in France, and I think it's the same in India, we want, publishers want their book to be present in the bookstores. And for that, they need to make piles, and very big piles. And when you see piles in a bookstore, you are attracted with it. So it's a marketing way of doing. But I think now with the cost of paper that raised those previous years, people are more aware about how doing the exactly right amount of books and avoid pulp. But I think we have many to do with that. We have to change our mentality, maybe do less book or the right book, not 5 times the same book. We've seen that in many cases. So I think it's changing, deeply changing the book industry. All those questions of environment have to change our way of doing.
I was reading one of your interviews while researching for this panel, and I noticed you talked about statistics to do with the second-hand book sales in France. So could you help the audience understand that? Because often when books are resold or books are repeatedly issued in a library, publishers or authors don't really gain monetarily from that. So that's part of the reason why there is a printing of more and more books and wanting to own a book rather than just read a book.
That's also a problem of environment, is that you will try to find solution. We say second-hand book is a solution. In France, it's 1 book on 4 is from second-hand book. It's a lot. So in one way, you can say we don't have to make more books, so it's very good for environment. But at the same time, you avoid publishers to be paid for their work, and that point is very important, because if we don't have publishers, how we do new books? So that's why this card game is very nice, because you can put all the complexity of things on a table, because there is no easy solution. If there were, we would have done it now. So we have to talk together to find maybe other way of doing, and just rethink the way we are doing, because all that has been thought in a world that has not this problem. Now we are struggling with this problem. So now we have to find maybe another way of doing books, another way of marketing, another way of finding the readers, because as you said, and I think the beginning of this meeting was very interesting, because what is important? All the book industry is made for putting stories into the readers. So that's point, the more important. And afterwards, we have a book chain, a book industry done, and many jobs, many professionals working. But the more important is story for the readers.
I would love to hear both of you on this topic.
I just wanted to add something about the second-hand market in France, because it become more important, and I think it's good, but there is not any law or nothing in legalized really for the author. And so I think we should find a way, I don't know how, but to make sure that when a second-hand book is bought, something came back for the author and also for the publisher. At the moment, we don't know how to do that. There is no control, there is nothing, so something is wrong for that. But we think we have to develop it, but to find the good way to develop it.
You also have ways of offsetting, countries have ways of offsetting their carbon imprint, right? So if publishers can also dedicate some of their funding towards, supporting like environmental regeneration, that's one of the things to talk about. But I'd love to hear you as well on this topic.
No, I was just thinking to add something. We don't have any economical model for a second-hand book, and particularly because in France we have a law on the price of the book, which means each store has to sell the book at the same price, and the price is printed on the book. And so even if you have a book which is a little bit damaged, you have to destroy it, because you can't put a lower price on it. And so all the economic chain of the book is based on new book. And actually we have to think all together to that and to change it, but it will take time. And we have, of course, big corporation. We will disagree to any new ideas we could have. So.
Thank you so much. Can we, do we have more time to talk, or should we move into the audience questions? It's time to open it up, right? Great. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Let's take questions from the audience, and I hope this conversation will also lead people to think of their own ways of, being more responsible environmentally. I think one of the ways to do it is to also think of the huge amounts of food wastage that happens at literature festivals and book launches and other things. That's also one way of thinking about how to be responsible, not just in terms of reducing print runs. So anyone from the audience would like to ask a question? Do we have a mic for the audience? There. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, good morning. It was a wonderful conversation which starts a lot of thoughts. So I'm Bishwadip Chakraborty. I'm an independent publishing house from Kolkata which focuses on translation. Apart from the fact that we are in translating, we have a focus on feminist and queer writing also. So, I'm from Kolkata, and a lot of people there actually learn French. So we have a lot of French translators. The problem that I face is, as you know, when we're a small publishing house, so books that we want to do, we really want to know how to get good French books that I should be translating, because we translate into English, Bengali, and Assamese. How do we get that? How do we get the rights? As of now, we have done only 2 books, one poetry collection into English, and a children's book into English, Bengali, Assamese, and a bilingual, right? But both the books don't exist in France. We have actually got that through our connections, which is not published in France, and then we have done it. But we are interested to know, how do I get to good books which we should be translating here?
Thank you for your question. Gaëlle is going to answer.
Yeah, thank you. It's the opportunity for me to speak about a project that I created 10 years ago. The name is Hors Concours. It's a book prize about independent publishers in France, in the French speakers. And each time we have a selection of 40 independent publishing companies that are participating to that program. And since 1 year, we translated in English to help the foreign publishers to have the information about these French publishers, French independent publishers. They are small ones, very involved in many subjects. And the aim, the goal is to make you know about them, but at the same time to make them know about you. So it's to connect independent publishers in France and all over the world. So you can find it on the internet. I can give you the link to know about that. But I think that I hope that is answer to your question.
I think Marianne wants to add to that.
Yeah, and I think what the French Institute is doing here is particularly connecting people from both sides. So maybe you should ask them. They are just in front of you.
And maybe we should have a meeting together as well, just after this panel.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes, Manisha.
So my question is to Gaëlle. Has there been like an audit of the life cycle of a book? The environmental audit of the life cycle of a book? What happens, every process, and right till the point of pulping? And can that kind of data be shared across industries?
Yeah, thank you for this question. We are doing it right now in France. It's a syndicate of publishers is doing the life cycle of a book. They try to do just a photography of what is a book today and how could we manage to do the thing better. I think that we are now at the moment that we are taking the information, taking the responsibility of that, putting the data, because you can't do things if you don't have data. That's why that's very important, and finding solution. That's a work in progress. But I take this time to say that we do the book Fresque in French. It's for the French market. We are doing it now in Germany for the German market. We could do it here in India if we want for the Indian market. We could do it wherever we want in the world, because the process is quite simple. The question is how to find the data and how to organize it to help you to be aware with your own market about sustainability.
Sure. And I asked this question purely because this whole business of growing woods, which will then be used for paper, is also part of the whole Norwegian conversation, and that the library which is going to be publishing manuscripts 100 years from now, they've already planted the forest that they are going to be using the wood from. So I think it is important to be conscious of the fact that the activity of book publishing is very much part of a larger chain where we're all connected in so many ways. I just thought
that's why a lot of labels exist, and they are supported by institution. It's more and more you have to have this label. You can't do without this label, and I think it's a good way for the policy to organize the sustainability of the book chain.
And I hope we also involve more individuals from Gen Z in this conversation around climate and environment, because they are the ones inheriting the planet, and I have to deal with most of the nonsense that previous generations have created. Often they're not in decision-making positions, considered as only frivolous enough to do reels, but you have a very strong sense of justice. So I think they should be at the forefront of this conversation. Anything else that people want to ask? Yes, please.
Not a question, but I do want to thank you. I'm an Australian bookseller. I've been a bookseller for 30 years. So it's really interesting to hear how much is shared between Australia, France, China and Norway. So thank you very much for a really interesting panel. And thank you to the organisers for Bookmark. The sessions I've come to have been really illuminating, and I think it's lovely to see that books can bring us all together, the industry brings us all together, and the passion that we all have for books and reading is really universal. So thank you all very much.
And I would urge everyone to also think of audiobooks and e-books when we think of books, and not only print books. Maybe that's also something to keep in mind when we advance this conversation about sustainability. The people from the next panel are already here, so we should try and wind up. But thank you everyone who participated, either by organizing, speaking, or attending. Thank you, Manisha, for inviting us all.